Welcome back to the podcast. My name is Joseph Clough, and this is episode 869. Now, in today's episode, we're going to be talking about why we don't succeed in our goals or our dreams, or how patterns can keep on reoccurring. Now, why is that important? Why is that important to understand? Because you may notice some familiar trends in certain areas of your life, or maybe in all areas of your life even, because what we do in one thing, we do tend to repeat in the everything. As an example, have you ever noticed you keep on attracting the same kind of partner relationship over and over again? Like, you go from one relationship to the other one, expecting the person to be different because maybe there was a form of abuse or some narcissistic traits or whatever it may be in that previous relationship, and you tend to almost like attract the same person. Or maybe you go from one workplace to another, but whatever happens, the same familiar things keep happening. Even to the point, which is a bit of a reverse, maybe you really want to be in a certain career job, but anxiety is in that situation, so you kind of settle for not being in that job to go for maybe a so-called easier job, which doesn't have the same demands or the same experience of anxiety. And we can broaden this out to money, we can do this to our health, we can do this to literally even our personal development at times, where we just kind of work on the environmental aspect of what's showing up in our life. Well, today I want to kind of guide you from some of you may have heard this before. If not, it's going to be really good to understand, and if you have heard this before, it's going to rekindle an idea that we've really got to be conscious of if we're experiencing some conflicts within us, even if you're just staying in the same toxic environment and not being able to feel like you can change. No matter what we're going through, you're going to understand something. You're going to dive deeper into the nature of why we're not succeeding in the things that we would like to succeed in, and why we keep on repeating the same kind of things. So let's break it down in our mind. Soon, I want you to imagine something almost like a triangle or a pyramid, you could say. Let's just say the first bottom layer of that, say like that kind of pyramid right there, is the environment. You see, that's how we know we experience our issue. That's where we know we experience our successes, because we're getting this continuous feedback from the external world to our internal world. In other words, our perception of the internal and what is happening around us. So what could be examples of that? Well, that environment could be a partner. That environment could be a boss or a career. It could be your bank account. So anything which is external, that's going to be your environment, because you live within environments, right? That's how we know. We get this feedback. I go into this job and I feel anxiety. So there's this relationship that we have with the external world. If there was no environment, we would just be in the present, would have no idea of what labels are. We wouldn't be making decisions because it would be just nothing. We'd just be like consciousness. But we do have this external environment, and therefore we interact with it. But the real problem here is we tend to think that the environment is the only issue. Not to say it's not an issue if you have a narcissistic partner or past partner, or if you have a bad boss, or you experience anxiety within that career, or you're not having the money in your bank account, then of course it is important. In fact, it's a good thing, because our environment will usually tend to show up a level of resistance, which I like to think is a signal It's just feedback. It's a feedback loop between the external world and the internal world, and then back out to the external and back into the internal. It just keeps on going and going and going, and you react to it. You react to your environment. So in other words, if you were to be in a very cold or a very hot environment, your body is going to react to it, and therefore the same thing happens when it comes to stress. The stress of the career, stress of the relationship, stress of the environment that we're in. But the problem is, we tend to try to change the environment. Maybe we can fix that person. Maybe if we go to a new person, we'll be okay. Maybe I'll go to a different career and maybe it will be okay. Maybe if I just try to change my environment when I think about money, everything will just change. The problem there is it rarely ever happens, but we are instinctively thinking, but I must change my environment because it shows up in our environment. Like if you get a physical pain in your body, you might feel it in the knee, and you might think, well, it's the external part, but it could be something deeper than that. It could be a ligament, it could be a bone, it could be a fracture. Like you wouldn't just kind of put a band-aid over it. You wouldn't just, if it was broken, just rest it for a little bit or keep walking on it. It's feedback. It's gonna draw you in if you do this correctly. You can have so much gold within the symptoms that you feel because it can lead us more to the root. But I think we can all agree it's not a good idea to keep jumping from relationship to relationship and expecting something else. Doing other things when it comes to money and expecting it's going to magically change. Going to different careers or workplaces or another new business or a shiny object syndrome and just think it's going to be okay. Because it hasn't been that way, so why should we keep on expecting? You know what, like Einstein said, the definition of things like madness is doing the same thing over and over again and expecting a different result. And that's what we tend to do in our environment. We just keep on trying to go in a different environment, change the environment, and then hopefully we'll be okay. But things keep showing up. So the next thing, which becomes the issue, going back to that kind of pyramid, we have that lower level of the environment, while the level above that is our behavior. In other words, what we do in the environment, right? That's how we show up in our environment. That behavior kind of switches from the external, the environment, to the internal. So we're kind of going a little bit deeper. We're not just saying it's the environment. Maybe I'm going to change some aspects of my behavior. But as good as intention that is, it can actually lead you to more conflict. Because the behavior that we do is the byproduct of something which is going on. Like if I have the behavioral experience of a phobia, and I just try to change that, but maybe there's a protection mechanism, and that's why our body's not shifting. It doesn't matter how much sometimes like the cognitive behavioral therapy or talking about all the time, it doesn't necessarily change, right? Because it's just the behavior. And I said this recently, I think, that some of the issues I have when it comes to practitioners of change, there are some amazing ones. I know a lot of them, or many of them, not a lot of them, not even many of them, because there's a lot of practitioners of change in the world. But I've met a lot and spoken and even trained practitioners, and they can be super good. From all the, like from cognitive behavioral therapists, from people who do hypnosis and counseling and talk therapy, psychotherapy, and all those things. But one of the issue is they try to focus sometimes on changing just what presents in their experience. So they treat the client with what will they walk into the therapy room. But the truth is, the behaviors which are showing up are just consequential aspects of something else. So I always say, well, don't treat the symptom of what walks in, figure out what's creating those symptoms. right? If you are, and I've said this one before because I'm a very big believer in taking that kind of medical diagnostic perception, is that when the patient comes in and you just kind of treated the symptoms, all of those things with just like one pill for the headache, one pill for the stomachache, one for the fever, one for the shivering, one for the sinuses, one for the headache, one for every time I eat I feel bad. If you just had to take a pill for each one of those, you're just treating the symptom. You'd think that'd be mad for a doctor to do that. You'd hopefully go to a different doctor where that different doctor would go, hey, these symptoms are something about, or is an example of something else which is happening, like a bacterial infection. And then therefore they'll just prescribe you probably antibiotics, right? That one thing is going to let go of everything. So remember, don't just try to change the behavior or the habits or the actions and the reactions. You can, and it will help. But if it doesn't tend to change, we've got to go a little bit deeper. But it's a good investigative tool. What shows up in our environment is once again important. It leads us to the behavior. And then what leads us to something deeper than the behavior? Well, let's go back to that pyramid again. Bottom layer, environment. Next level is going to be our behavior. The one above that is what dictates behavior. And that is your capability, or your idea of what you're capable of. You see, if you don't believe you're capable in something, you're going to start to produce actions which don't live up to the outcome that you want. Like, if I don't believe I'm capable to present, then my behavior is going to show up maybe with nerves, anxiety, and fear and worry. And then when I'm in my environment, the presentation itself, it really shows up. So ultimately, what dictates our behavior, our actions, are going to be what we think is our capacity, right? So you can see this kind of like little pyramid in our mind. Bottom layer, our environment, next level behavior, then our capacity, what we think is actually possible. So some people think, well, if I just change my mindset about what is possible, hopefully everything will be okay. Usually it does not, because once again, what dictates and governs our capacity? Well, the next thing for me is going to be our beliefs or our values. And we can see how that's really, really natural in this pyramid, right? Because if I don't believe I'm good enough, I'm going to have a limited capacity in what I believe is what is capable. Therefore, I produce all the behaviors I dislike, the anxiety, the fear, the imposter syndrome, the self-sabotage, all of those things which then show up in my environment. So if we flip that round and went, well, I am good enough, well, suddenly my capacity is expanded. Now, my behaviors are doubled and tripled in a good way, and then I show up in my environment in a powerful way. So we now know our beliefs are important, but the other one which goes almost like married to that one is our values. You see, if you have a very low value around money, you might really want it, but your value of money is just stacked with negativity and scarcity and doubt, and it's never going to get to me. It comes and it goes. It's the root of all evil. Then surely your capacity to get money just shrinks down, and your behavior shrink down because you got these associations around your values. And those values can be about relationships. Maybe we have this, and by the way, these are unconscious, right? These are unconscious processes. Our beliefs and our values are being run at an unconscious level. If we think about values when it comes to relationships, where did you get maybe your values from a relationship? Maybe you modeled certain people in your life, maybe parental figures, and that became the basis of what we unconsciously believe is a relationship, right? Kind of makes sense. We kind of repeat what we observe. So therefore, our values are very important. Same thing when it comes to family, values about our career, all of those things will start to, in other words, our beliefs and our values will dictate our capacity and therefore our behavior, therefore our environment. But then we got to ask, on this pyramid, what's even more than that? And to me, it is our identity. You see, whatever we identify with is going to produce the belief systems. It's going to construct them. Because when you came into this world, you did not have any beliefs or values. You were a blank slate. So therefore your identity was like, I don't know what is. I don't know what isn't. It just is. So therefore, we start to generate these beliefs and values from modeling people or through the significant events that we went through. So in other words, forms of trauma. It could be big or small. It could be a build-up. It could be a big, huge one-time event. But that will start to decide our values and our belief systems. So we have our identity. Between the beliefs and the values, well, actually, let me ask you this question. Where should we tend to work on most? Like if you were going to change, let's say you have the imposter syndrome and your environment, it shows up in your work, it shows up in your relationship, it shows up in your bank account, all of those things, would you go the environment, the behavior, our capacity, our beliefs and values, or identity? Well, ideally, we want to be focusing on the identity and the belief and the values. You see, if we let go of that limiting belief, it changes our identity. But also if we go into what I would say is your source identity, which is before any beliefs, you become congruent as well. So for everyone who kind of keeps on bouncing around from different relationships and expecting something different careers or different expectations of money, or whatever goals and dreams you have that you're not making those a reality for whatever reason, I think that reason is going to be around how we identify with ourselves, because that dictates all beliefs, all values, then our capacity, then our environment, then our behavior, then our environment. Now I'm going to go for an extension of this soon, but if you can just paint this picture in your mind, our identity and beliefs, let's just have those as one, begins to create our capacity, which creates our behavior, which creates our results. The quality of the results that we get will reaffirm the beliefs and our identity. In other words, if I don't believe I'm good enough, my capacity is small, my output, my behavior is not that good, the results I get go, well, that's why I am like I am. That's why I'm not good enough. That's why I'm not worthy. So it's like this feedback loop which goes round and round and round through the experiential aspect of our connection with the external and the internal world of us. So if you're going to make a change, if you want to break the system, that feedback loop, which shows up all the time, I would ask you to not just focus on the environment unless you're using it as a source to get you closer to the truth. I would suggest you not to work just on the behavior or the symptoms unless it gets you closer to the truth. Same thing with capacity. We want to get closer to the truth, which will be our beliefs about ourselves, our values, and our identity. They're kind of together in many ways. They feedback that bit more. But I did say I was going to teach you or tell you about something extended to that. And this is what I think supercharges us when it comes to getting our goals and dreams. Because it's a good thing to know you're good enough to get them. It's a great thing to know you're worthy of them as an identity, or that you're deserving of them, or that you're fill in the blank. I am positive word to get this goal and outcome. That's great. I love it. But if you want to supercharge it, imagine that triangle, there's going to be like an upside down triangle on top of that. And what that kind of means is like you got this bottom big triangle, and then above that you got on top of it, balancing this upside down triangle. Bit hard to paint a picture in your mind maybe if you're listening to this on the podcast. But that upside triangle on top of the basis of this pyramid, like we talked about, is what I think is something more than us. Now, this can be anything. It really, really can. It can be about a religion, spirituality. It could be about purpose. It could be about meaningful, like living a meaningful life. I'm not here to tell you what it is for you. I respect all models of the world. But whatever it is, if you can connect to something great, I mean, once again, it could be like the universe and all those things. If you can if you can connect with something greater than yourself when it comes to achieving this goal and outcome, you'll have a deeper meaning, because it's not just for you now, it's for something greater than yourself. Now, for me, like when I think about my work, my mission, my ambition, my vision is to help as many people as possible. That is what I try to do. Whether it be with all the free content or people in my premium program, which means you get the closer connection of these crazy cool processes and all these kind of cool things. Whatever that is, the intention behind that, even for like going live 3 times per week for about an hour and a half, hour and 15 minutes each time, and all the prep before that for free, is the intention to help people. That is honestly what I'm trying to do. So that means it's not just about me, right? It's not about just the ego. I feel like there's something more to achieve beyond myself. And we can tie that back into what they call the hero's journey, which is, if you've not heard of it, I think it's Joseph Campbell. Every movie, book, novel, all these things, there's this hero's journey when everything's fine. I mean, there's like 12 steps to it, so I'm going to just do a real condensed version. But when everything's fine for the lead character or the lead characters, and then something happens, then they go on this journey to figure it out. Sometimes they'll meet someone along the way, like a teacher or a mentor, or maybe an event which kind of goes, wow, it's not just about me anymore, it's something greater than me. So they kind of find this mission beyond their problem. So their problem woke them up not only to the solution, but something so much greater and bigger for them. So how can we start to apply this in, say, relationships, our money, say if you've got a career goal or a business goal? Well, think about the deeper impact of achieving that goal. What is that going to mean, not just to you, but maybe to other people or the environment? The best way to be really good in ecology is good for self, good for others, and good for the world. See how if it's not just good for me, it's not that meaningful. But if it's good to me, good for others, and good for the environment, well, yeah, that seems like a very ecological way of wanting to get a goal and dream. So you want to supercharge your goal. Think about what's it going to mean once I achieve it. How is it going to maybe support my family? How is it going to support maybe people I don't know? It could be through charities. It could be through creating businesses, and therefore you're feeding families because you're paying them salaries and therefore putting their kids through school or university. Like, the ripples can go far and wide if you really think about the depth of what you do when it comes to achieving this goal and outcome. But it could tie back to, say, God, the universe, or some form of spirituality. It could do that as well. Not for everyone. I mean, it's up for you to decide whatever that is for you. And like I said, I respect all models of the world. I don't impose my ideas upon people, and that's why I don't really talk about that much stuff. I talk about you and like where I want you to transform and change, but I'm not here to impose any belief system or whatever that truth is of mine to other people. My intention is not to anyway. I might talk about it here and there, but it's not to hopefully impose. But I do know that there's something greater that if I can tap into, it's going to fuel me. It's going to cause me to go, I've got to do this. I want to do this. I get to do this. When you're in that frame with the identity and the beliefs and values of I am worthy, deserving, and good enough, how could you not create unlimited capacity and behaviors to show up in your environment? I think that system, and it's just a system, a thought, an idea process, a hierarchy of ideas, a hierarchy of how one has an effect on the other. But I think the overall lesson here is that most people tend to focus on just the environmental experience that we have. So the things which show up in our environment, from the relationships to the career and all those things we discuss, or the behaviors, or we could say the symptoms of that interaction between the external and the internal world. But I think we've got to go on a deeper journey. If you're going to really change your life and really get what you want out of life, allow you to experience something greater than you could ever imagine and get what you want, like that great relationship which has all the experiences, or like the money which can actually create generational wealth maybe, or to support your family or charities or businesses or whatever it may be, customers, all of those things in every area. Once you kind of connect, get all those like the higher levels sorted and resolved, and also connect, because here's the other thing which I didn't talk about. Some people are not able to connect truly to that top level of something greater than ourselves. Why? Because that lower level is disconnected. Like, how can you believe fully and complete? You might have the idea and the notion of it, or that's still your belief system or your truth, or whatever word you want to kind of sum it up that way. But it's hard to be able to find something greater than yourself when you don't believe you're worthy of it or good enough. Even if you don't articulate it that way consciously, unconsciously, there could be this self-sabotaging block to find that hero's journey of something bigger and greater of us, or to find that connection with God or the universe or your spiritual beliefs or atheist beliefs. It doesn't really matter to me. All of those things. It could be about charities, it could be about legacy. It's hard to connect to that greater aspect to us when we're disconnected with our true identity of being worthy of it. So be prepared in a wonderful way that once you work on that core identity, those beliefs and values, you will then be able to connect into something greater. And that's why it is like in the hero's journey. That's how I fell into this profession, because I experienced my own pain, all the anxiety, the blushing, the fear and the dread, the self-consciousness, the limiting thoughts and beliefs, all of those things. I went on a journey to let that go. And then on the other side of letting it go, I was like, I want to help as many people as possible. So that became the greater aspects, but I couldn't help the greater amount of people if I didn't believe I was worthy or good enough. That is why sometimes practitioners don't always get the best results, because they don't believe in their own ability. In fact, I'll tell you a quick little experiment they did with hypnotists, for that matter. If one hypnotist didn't believe they could create a hypnotic phenomena, and one other hypnotist believed they could create that hypnotic phenomena, well, we kind of probably know the success of that one. The person, the hypnotist, who didn't believe in creating that hypnotic phenomena in the hypnotee, wasn't able to produce it. Even though they had the same script or the same process, could not produce it. But the person who absolutely had that knowingness produced it every single time. So remember, when you have that deep self-certainty, you show up congruently and you just make things a reality. And even better than that, you may notice that you are able to create something or connect to something greater than yourself. And it could be in any of those forms that I said. It could be ones I didn't even say, but I'm curious to find out what it will be for you. So I hope you got value from this episode. Always remember, try to work all the way on the core issues. That's my philosophy. But now you can start to understand how we can make that shift to put our attention not at the lower level, but the real core levels. Now, of course, if you are super motivated to work with us, to be able to let go of your core conflict, especially when it comes to the imposter syndrome, you can go to josephclough.info/talk. When you go to josephclough.info/talk, you'll fill out an application form. You'll then get on a call with us, a one-to-one call with us, where we'll consider and decide what you want to let go of, how and the goals you want to achieve, what's getting in the way. And if we can solve it, we'll say, yeah, we can solve it. We'll let it all go. You've got to be invested, of course. It's not a free program. You have to be invested in time and money, because we go into the full customized aspect. But if that is for you, that is josephclough.info/talk. So with that, my friends, I look forward to speaking to you in a future episode. And once again, as well, if you're on the app, if you look at the previous bonus episode, you just recently got a brand new sleep version of the hypnosis session we did on that prior episode to that one. So thank you for being a member or subscriber to the app and getting all those bonus hypnosis sessions every single week. Many thanks and goodbye.